So, good evening to all of you, all the participants, and our distinguished speaker for today, Karthik Radia. Good morning and good afternoon, because I think I find a lot of participants joining from different continents. So, welcome to the 25th edition. This is the 25th session, of Analytics Wednesday, the complimentary webinar series on analytics that we have started. And it's really great to have a very good distinguished speakers join in week after week to give knowledge to us about analytics, artificial intelligence, blockchain, technology, developments in internal audit, external audit, for auditors, for finance accountants, for finance, for accountants, etc. And I think the entire series, the 24 past webinars and this webinar also are available on the Sama YouTube channel if somebody wants to refer to them. Today is the 25th in the series, and the topic is business case for artificial intelligence in internal audit. Today is a silver jubilee, as Satish points out, rightly has pointed out. Today is the silver jubilee because today is the 25th session. So Karthik has stepped in for the silver jubilee celebrations for us. Before I formally introduce Karthik, because I like to formally introduce Karthik Radia, I'd like to just add that this webinar series is supported by the Government of Canada, the Trade Commissioner Services. We have had earlier in the past, held workshops, conferences in the High Commission in Delhi, in the Canadian Embassy. But I think after COVID, we have switched to an online knowledge series, and they have stepped in to say that this is supported by the Trade Commissioner Services, Government of Canada. Hopefully, as the physical meetings commence, we'll have sessions in the High Commission in Delhi. Now, with that little introduction, I'm not going to talk about Sama Audit today. It's an audit technology company providing audit solutions. In the flagship product is IDEA. Of course, there is Smart Exporter, which is a ETL for SAP. There is external audit working papers, some Caseware working papers, which have added on in April onwards. There's LSA, which is a continuous control monitoring solution for auditors as well as for finance and other professionals in other operational areas. So with that, I'd like to formally introduce the speaker. Karthik is the managing partner for Mazars India LLP. He heads a team of around 25 partners and 400 plus team members in India. He is based out of Mumbai, spent 20 years servicing large and medium-sized clients, complete suite of advisory services such as DATE, which is Digital Analytics Technology Enterprise Applications ERP. You have GRRC, which is Governance, Risks, Resilience and Compliance. FRM, Financial Risk Management, Cyber Security, Forensics, Business Transformation and Automation, Corporate Finance, Business Restructuring, M&A, Due Diligence, Valuations, Buy Side and Sell Side, Private Equity Fundraising. Prior to joining Mazars, he has worked with large accounting firms such as PwC, EY, and BDO, and with WPP in New York. He has worked across sectors. Now, I'm not going into the sectors because it's such a huge list, We'll end the session with only reading his biodata. So I'm taking the liberty of cutting it short by saying that he has worked across large number of sectors, which was sent across to all the participants and everybody. He has managed engagements in the areas of complex risk modeling, assignments such as capital adequacy reviews, stress testing, financial reviews, internal audit effectiveness and governance, effectiveness reviews for banks and financial institutions, corporate resilience framework, etc. He has worked on international assignments across geographies. He believes that any consulting team that must add real value should focus on implementation effectiveness, and the advice must be contextual to the business. Very much close to my heart what he's saying, Karthik is saying here. And very typically, one size that fits all can never be applied in the consulting framework. So he believes that COVID-19, now this is another belief which I want to highlight. COVID-19 is a course-changing turning point in the human history that has long-lasting impact on various generations for at least next 3 decades, and which has lessons for all professions and professionals in all streams and spheres of human vocation. So I think, of course, he's technology geared and he's talking about digital platform and technology. So I'm not going to go through that. His strategy is business modeling. He's a prolific speaker, speaking at various forum in India, in all the professional bodies and also abroad. He's a fellow chartered accountant, associate company secretary, associate cost and works accountant, a certified public accountant, a CPA, CISA, CIA, and of course, a commerce graduate from Mumbai. So I think, please pardon me for not reading out your entire biodata, Karthik, but a very young person, very young dynamic professional to head a multinational CPA firm, CA firm in the country. So over to you, Karthik.
First of all, thank you, Deepji, for such a generous introduction. I really appreciate this. Thanks a lot. Now, coming to the topic, I have a presentation, Deepji. If you allow me to share the screen, I can just put it on. And
Karthik, you've been made the host. You can share your screen.
Okay. So I am sharing it to all the panelists. Just one second. Who can share? All panelists. Okay. Only host can share. Okay. So I've done that. So can you now see the screen of mine?
No, not so far.
Just one second. Who can start sharing when someone is sharing?
Somehow it is the host now. I think Jairam. No, okay. Karthik is the host now.
Can you try now?
Yeah, I'm just trying. It's not allowing me actually. Advanced sharing options. Who can share? Only host. I've selected all panelists. And who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? I said only host. Should I say all panelists?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You can click on the green button at the bottom, share screen. I think it should broadcast it to everyone online.
Yeah, but you know, it is giving me advanced sharing option. It is not allowing me to share the screen. It is saying who can share. And then I have to select, I've selected all panelists. And then who can share when someone else is sharing. I've selected again all panelists. That's all. And then it doesn't allow anything further.
One minute, let me just reclaim the host again. Okay, now I've done that. I'm just making you the host again.
Yeah.
So Karthik, I've made you the host again. Just see if you can share now.
All right. Just give me a second. Can you see it now?
Oh, yeah. Great.
Yes.
I think it's coming up.
Absolutely. It's coming up. Started screen sharing. Yes.
You know, once it's there fully.
Yeah. You can make it full screen. Yeah. That's it, Karthik. You're on.
Okay. So I call this session really as a business case for integrating artificial intelligence into internal auditing. So the short forms here, AI in IA, and it's perfectly the reverse order of AI is IA. So in artificial intelligence in internal auditing, and before I actually get into some detailed things here, let me just put the things in the context. I think Deepji mentioned about COVID pandemic being one of the really life-changing and course-changing events, and not just for auditors, but I think across the board for all people in business and in different kinds of activities outside of business, whether it is education, healthcare, government, even socio-economic reaches, outreach. All of these, I think COVID pandemic has been a real life-changing event. So for auditors also is not really an exception in that sense. And therefore, what I want to focus really is about artificial intelligence in internal auditing as a discipline, as a function, and as a process. I mean, what all it brings for us. And really the reference to COVID pandemic is very important because the set of businesses that we are auditing, which is what the subject of the audit is all about, they have shifted gears really to different means of doing business. There is no more physical presence that was required for a long, or rather an extended long period of time. And therefore, most of the things were happening virtually, digitally, if at all you want to call it. And most of the businesses therefore shifted the gears and made the presence felt in a very different manner. The question really is that, is the internal auditing or the auditing profession really prepared for it? So how is artificial intelligence, or for that matter, various things around the digital presence of an auditor, internal auditor or statutory auditor, how is this going to really integrate the artificial intelligence in practice? And when I say artificial intelligence, of course, the term is very broad term. I'm coming to the definition of it, but it's a very broad term. And is there a case of business? There is a real case of business. The real case of business is because all sets of businesses have gone really virtual. Businesses using artificial intelligence to its core, and therefore internal auditing also, there is a business case for using artificial intelligence. So that is the full form of the topic. The short form, I call it as AI in IA. And the objective of the session is to narrow down the gap between the technologies or the options of technologies that are available and the internal audit as a function. So is there a way in which we can bring the IA and technology more close to each other? And that's the whole objective of this session, to reduce the distance between the technology and IA as a function. I start with some of the very basic questions. The first and the foremost key question is, are we as internal auditors or auditing professionals supposed to be deliberating about AI and some of the other digital emerging technologies that we are going to be covering today? And why should we do that? And the real answer to this key question is that generally we would expect, because we are the people who are going to keep a watch on business, we are going to keep our eye open on what's happening in the business. And if the business is using artificial intelligence and digital technologies to the very core level and to the far level of implications of making sure that the businesses have turned, most of the businesses that were not digital have turned digital. So if the business is using it to understand really what's happening in the business and to really adapt to it, I think that's where the auditing profession also has to keep pace. And that's why we are discussing this particular topic today. The follow-on 4 questions are, and really I would want all of you to kind of just think through these questions by stepping back a little bit and by introspecting a little bit about the auditing as a profession in general. Have we as internal auditing profession kept pace with the evolution of technologies, its usage, and when the technology itself has gone through a very deep level of metamorphosis, I would say, in various formats? So have we really kept pace with the evolution of technology and its usage? To me, the blunt answer to that question is really no. The second follow-on question is, do we adequately understand the evolving technologies that are transforming and disrupting the business models? And do we really understand how these technologies are changing every aspect of our life and what the implications are going to be for the future? Now, let me give you an example. Let's say we have a model of Zomato. Recently, we had most of us can relate to it because it had a very successful IPO and a very blockbuster post-listing journey on the stock exchanges. But look at it as Zomato as a company is one of the most recent examples. It came in as an aggregator for restaurants, and during the time when the physical outreach to the restaurants is not possible, or rather it's very limited. We still have timing restrictions, although COVID in some form is relaxing overall, but we still have many restrictions out in some of the some of the metros in India, particularly Mumbai and some of the other metro cities. and where Zomato is actually helping us to get food on time at any given point of time, even through late nights, and look at how the restaurants basically have no option but to allow the aggregator like Zomato or Swiggy, to come in and allow the business to be fully transformed. So that is the technology at its use in a particular business model. It is transforming a business model. We earlier had also Uber and Ola and various kinds of other technologies that have transformed. But do we as auditors really understand some of these disrupting technologies and how they're transforming the business models? And again, I won't say a complete no to this, but at the same time, I also believe that if you have to understand all of these evolving technologies, you have to understand some of the nuances of these technologies and how they're transforming the business models. So that's where I believe that, again, this is something which is not really very well understood by the auditors. And that's the answer to question number 2. Question number 3. Are we leveraging in our internal audit procedures and our internal auditing activities, are we leveraging and utilizing AI in the processes of internal audit? And that obviously, if we do that, then it is going to help us to improve the quality, coverage, and insights of the audit. Are we doing and are we leveraging and utilizing AI enough? Again, a blunt answer to question number 3, according to me, is no. I don't think we are leveraging it enough or utilizing it enough. Question number 4. Will AI in its various forms actually replace the need for an audit as a discipline? And people give an answer to me. I've heard various sessions on blockchain and various fintech channels, and people have a case in point saying that blockchain, for example, because it's going to be a virtual third-party ledger processing program. It's a distributed ledger, all authenticated, fully authenticated on a real-time basis. There is no need for auditing as a profession or no need for internal audit as a profession. Answer to that is yes, audit obviously is going to change its existence in a very different avatar, because the auditing also will become real time. It will become fully technology enabled, means if the transaction is happening real time, if the ledgers are updated real time, and if it is authenticated real time, there's no reason why auditor should not authenticate and give a validation real time. So auditing also will happen really on time, real time, but the need for replacement of an audit will never come in at any point in the history. That's my proclamation. Audit has always existed. 2,300 years ago, it existed in, as a mention in India's Arthashastra, which was authored by Kautilya Chanakya. Kautilya's Arthashastra Niti. It always existed. It existed at that point in time over kingdoms, over the auditing the activities of a kingdom. It is existing today when we have all the real-time systems like SAP system. Of course, we've got a lot of technology insights in auditing. So we've got all kinds of auditing, whether it is cyber security, whether it is application security, whether it is IT general controls, whether it is application controls. All of these have enriched auditing as the audit has evolved, but it has never replaced the need for an audit. And as we get into the future, once we get into an era which is fully blockchain enabled, even at that point in time, the basic schemes, the basic logics of the system, the workflows, the technology security, I think some of that will always exist as a need for auditing, but it is never going to be replaced, that there is going to be no need for an audit. Of course, human auditors can be replaced by bot auditors or a robot auditors, but it is never going to go completely out of existence, and humans will always be required. Even in the case of bot auditing the business processes and doing internal audit, even then to feed the bots and to feed the artificial intelligence, you would need human beings to make the system artificially intelligent, because the real intelligence lies in human beings, and the human beings will always be needed to feed the machines with artificial intelligence. So there's always going to be a need for auditing. And of course, our skills will have to dramatically change, because auditors are not going to look at each and every transaction. They're not going to look at each and every record or each and every transaction or each and every document, but it's going to be largely technology enabled. And that's what is the skill that we need to learn when I talk about the context of AI in IA. So, this was a main key question, and the 4 follow-on questions with which I start the session to get into a little bit more details. And I get into the complete landscape of artificial intelligence. What is this all about? So, artificial intelligence obviously is nothing but simulation of human intelligence in machines. If you minus the human beings, then the word artificial intelligence will be of no significance, because you need systems to be artificially intelligent, made them intelligent through human beings by the knowledge base that human beings have built up. Most of us have built up the knowledge sitting in our human brains. How do we translate that into machines is what artificial intelligence is all about. So basically, just to get into a little bit more details, so AI system works by ingesting large amounts of training data, analyzing the data, correlations, patterns, and then help us make predictions and prescriptions about the future states. So basically, it involves 3 cognitive skills: learning, reasoning, and self-corrections. And all of these are the features of artificial intelligence. And AI requires a very good foundation of a specialized hardware and software. And then what are the what-if scenarios, root cause analysis, and therefore help us to predict probability in the business outcomes. So that is what we are talking about AI in the real business context. Now, the complete landscape of AI is divided into a progressive journey. I call it as a progressive journey. It starts always with data first. And that is also, I think, what Deepji mentioned about the theme of the session is about Analytics Wednesday, as we call it. So data first, data is always first. Whenever you want machines to be intelligent, it always starts with data. The machines can only understand if they're fed with the right amount of data, because without data, machines cannot be intelligent. So it is always starts with data first, and therefore the machine learning and anything that we are going to be predicting by way of artificial intelligence is going to be with the data first. That will help us to build up all kinds of data analytics and predictive models using data. Second is natural language processing. We've been using natural language processing for quite long. All of our income tax, GST, and various processing, all the auto messages that we get, all the auto responses to those messages when we file our returns, or when we get the auto emailers and we respond to some of the emails, and the machines read those emails by way of natural language processing. All of those are the examples of natural language processing. It is also one format of artificial intelligence. The third in the progressive journey is robotic process automation, where you want some of the basic elementary processes to be carried out by robots. And again, we are going to talk a little bit more about this as we get into some of the details of the session as to what RPA does, how does it really work. But it is about saying that let's allow machines to carry out some of the mundane activities, repetitive mundane activities, and let human beings focus on some of the creative, high strategic, high impact areas, so that the creative human energies which are limited in supply, they can be used for really building up strategic thought processes and even actually feeding machines. But let the routine tasks and the processes be carried out by RPA tools, that is robots. So that is robotic process automation. The fourth in the progressive journey is conversational artificial intelligence. So where the bots or the RPA stops is where the conversational artificial intelligence takes over in the form of speech and vision. So basically all that you hear about chatbots and let's say Siri, for example, on our mobile phone, we have a Siri and we have a very virtual digital assistant, or a voice recognition and a voice assistant. That's an example of even a conversational artificial intelligence. And today, for example, any search engine like a Google or any search engine that you use, the moment you go and type something, it will tell you what previously people have searched about it. What is your previous search? And if you look at Google, for example, 2 searches that you do and the third search that you do it as a related, it will give you an auto suggestion. Okay, is this the search that you are trying to do? So that is a conversational artificial intelligence that works on a real-time platform. It exists today in the form of voice and even speech recognition, voice, speech, and vision recognition, and that is conversational artificial intelligence. A lot of times this works along with machines to basically direct you in the right, to guide you in the right direction. So where let's say you imagine a call center which is having 10,000 people that works on credit card collections or recovery, and let's say there is an issue or live issue on hand that is faced with one of the clients of a particular bank where the collection is happening. Now that issue could be so unique that it may not have been met by any of the customer service agents, and where if you give a particular issue to a particular customer service agent, he will have a way in which it can be solved. And there could be at least hundreds of different ways in which these different agents can try to solve a particular problem. But when you have a conversational artificial intelligence, it will actually guide even some of these call center agents, because all those queries of the past may have been fed and may have been learned, and there could have been a self-correction in which a particular query may have been dealt. So that works alongside human beings to solve a particular problem in a call center kind of an environment. So while it helps in replacing the real need for a large number of call center service agents. For example, from a 10,000 people, it can be brought down to really a few hundreds of them. And it also helps to basically try to solve it to the extent possible using speech and recognition. But once it cannot be solved, human beings come into play, and then a human being actually works on a particular problem in a very standardized way, again using conversational artificial intelligence alongside, and then solves a problem so that there is a standard resolution to a problem. So that is a conversational artificial intelligence, which is a next level where it interacts and converses with a human being, between a human being and a machine, and basically tries to solve a problem. The fifth one is the expert systems, and I basically tend to classify all recent evolutions of technologies, whether it is drones, IoT, blockchain systems, all of these are expert systems that are actually operating. Expert systems because they require a particular level of handling intelligence or methods in which they have to be dealt with, whether it is IoT, because IoT deals with the devices, the end devices, drones because it deals with the live examination of certain or live delivery or live examination of certain things. Again, it is live using technology. Again, that produces a lot of data. And blockchain systems because it processes all transactions, authenticates, validates, and keeps it as a part of the database. So these are all expert systems, that have evolved as one of the form of artificial intelligence in the fifth order of the artificial intelligence progressive landscape or roadmap. And the last one is AR, VR, where let's say a meeting like this, we are basically sitting in our homes or in our offices in different parts remotely, and we're doing this remote discussion. But when we talk about a virtual reality, basically it produces, not being in a conference, it produces a experience that is live enough, or rather much better than sitting in a conference room. So for example, wearing a certain device or with the help of certain device, we feel that we are interacting in a live room, sitting with our colleagues next to each other, and basically can virtually even interact much better than in a live setting. So that's a virtual reality and experience system, which is the sixth in the progressive order in the artificial intelligence. And while this is the progressive roadmap or a journey for artificial intelligence, there is a role for an internal auditor, and that evolves into assurance of using these technologies. As I told earlier, that the role of auditor may not get into in the future reviewing each and every vouching of each and every transaction. That may change because machines can very well take it over, but it is going to be around the fitness of these technologies, the fit for purpose for these technologies. Are these technologies fit for purpose, or are they fit enough for business? So fit for purpose technologies, effectiveness of usage, controls, governance, and securities of AI systems. And that is what the progressive role of an internal auditor is going to be when it comes to artificial intelligence. Moving further, how AI works for an internal auditor at a conceptual and an abstract level. And I'd like to get into some of the details of what internal auditing fundamentals is. And for that matter, let's also touch upon even auditing as a discipline, not just restrict to just internal auditing. So just coming to internal auditing fundamentals, it's an objective assurance and a consulting activity that is designed to add value and improve organizations' operations. If that's the core objective of an internal audit, and when it comes to statutory auditor, while statutory auditor role has also evolved into controls, governance, compliance, and even sustainability now, but the core has remained, which is auditing the financial state of affairs, the state of financial affairs, basically. And if that is the core objective of a statutory audit, and what I said about internal audit, then to even discharge this particular responsibility, AI is a very important must-have tool and has to work alongside the internal audit and has to be a very good part of internal audit as a function and discipline. So the entire auditing life cycle, so starting from data availability, fetching of data, cleansing of data, reading of data, sampling, if at all sampling is what we're still talking about, or even 100%, validation, communication, report preparation, and even audit committee presentations, some of the benchmarking and continuous improvement statistics, all of this can be made artificially intelligent, the entire life cycle, by using the right amount of technology. So if the role of internal auditing is about evaluating internal controls, or even a continuous monitoring assurance, or the governance, risk management, sustainability and compliance assurance, or even system, process and people assurance, I think in all of this, there is a role of technology. And in the complete life cycle, it is important to integrate the AI. And at a conceptual or an abstract level, it can actually help us in each and every part of the life cycle, in terms of fetching the data, in terms of helping us cleanse the data, in terms of reading the data, in terms of evolving patterns, in terms of even writing the reports and creating the reports. So that is a very important point. All that you need to do is create libraries of internal audit reports, put them into a library, and get machines or get robots to basically then help you also write live reports based on the data that is there with you in the past. So it can very well, if you've got a standard audit report, it will pick up, because there's no need to reinvent the audit observation language again and again. It can pick it up and it can even improvise from what is there in the library. And then of course, change for the data and facts. It can help us to also rate the findings, high, medium, low, or whatever is the methodology, and can actually help you to get a complete audit report in place once we have fed in enough amount of data, and once there is enough amount of data warehouse or the library of the data of the past. So that is how it will work at a conceptual and an abstract level. I want to get into slightly more details of business case for AI in business, and therefore AI in IA. So AI in IA is not much different from AI in business, because if IA has to really do an IA of business, then it has to basically understand how business is using AI. So there is a business case certainly for AI in business, and the same business case is applicable for AI in IA. So I would say, what are the key parts of this business case? One is continuous innovation, learning, and experience. And while a human mind has a limitation, and machines basically can help you to continuously innovate, the mere example of helping us to innovate is the fact that it takes over all the mundane activities and helps human beings to basically slightly focus on some of the more strategic high impact areas and help us also build models. So that itself is an example of continuous innovation, but it builds it over on that. There are various examples, let's say models, when we do financial model audit for a capital expenditure, or let's say for a bank that evaluates an investment proposal, and there are some criteria based on which the evaluation is made, that only gets, from the data feeding to basically getting the data live from the system, it only gets better. So for example, let's say in UK and in some of the other Western countries, what we also see is when a CapEx project of an infrastructure is evaluated, it gets live data of the usage of a particular, let's say a bridge or a flyover, how many people are using the flyover on a day-to-day basis, how is the financial model looking like on a day-to-day basis, and therefore what are the projections of payback, NPV, and so on. All of this happens live with the help of using of financial models that integrate very well with the devices and machines and with the physical environments. So continuous innovation, that's one of the very important part of the business case. Availability 24/7 and 366 days. I call it as 360 days because it doesn't even leave one day of a leap year. It is continuously available, and that's a very solid part of the business case. It doesn't need any break. It doesn't need any regenerating time. Doesn't need any resting time. It just keeps going on. It just keeps going. So that is another very important part. In fact, bots can do continuously the audit, even 24/7, round the corner. Round the clock, 366 days, 24/7. That's another part of the business case. Enhanced accuracy, scalability. It can't be scalable. Zomato as a business model couldn't have been scalable without the use of the core technology. So it's scalable to a very different level. And today, imagine the kind of scalability that some of the companies like Ola or let's say Netflix, or for example, Zomato or Swiggy, the kind of scalability that they've got, because had they not been there in place and operating today, the restaurants may not have been working to this scale. They've been able to work to this scale. Any particular restaurant with the least of the investment operating at a particular remote part of the city, they can very well be existent today as a result of this particular model, which is there, which is very, very scalable. So scalability, again, is one very solid part of the business case. It complements and transforms human intelligence. It doesn't replace human beings, but it complements and transforms. A right combination is machines and human beings together. There could be 2 or 3 or 4 different machines that a human being can interact with and can optimize his time by using these machines. So if you instruct machines, they will basically do the job. There needs to be somebody to instruct machines. And the more that you instruct machines today, for example, imagine, Facebook that is available to so many users. Today, for example, Microsoft O365 platform that is available to so many users. Zoom, this particular platform is available to so many users. And it is just helping us to complement the human intelligence that is there with us, because we are able to replicate and multiply ourselves with the usage of these machines by using the right amount of machines. Today, for example, I give you one very simple example. Today, for my emails, I get at least 700-800 emails a day on a daily basis. It is impossible for me to respond and read every particular email and respond it through my normal through my mind, human mind. And if I deploy a technology of let's say, based on the patterns of the past, if I deploy a technology of sorting out these emails, and if I deploy a technology of reading these emails and auto-responding to these emails, based on how I would want to respond to these emails, it will actually complement and transform my intelligence and my limitations also. The next one is not much different, transcending the human limitations. Today, human beings can only analyze the data using linear programming, LPP as we called it, using 2 dimensions, at the most 3 dimensions. I think what we have learned so far and what human being can learn is X and Y dimension, or at the best a Z dimension, X, Y, and Z. We can't deal with tens or hundreds of variables, but the real life is constituted, or is there in the real life, there are thousands of variables, and you have to solve a particular, you have to come to a particular outcome, analyzing all these different variables that are existing. You can't say that there are only 2 or 3 variables. In the real life, there are thousands of variables, and that a human being cannot analyze, and that is only possible using machines. So transcending human limitations and boundaries is one very important solid business case for AI in business and for AI in IA. And a synergic value addition. Basically, we've always learned 1 + 1 is not 2, but it is 11. And that is only possible when human beings combine themselves with machines. And this applies not just for business, but applies for all fields. Basically, there's a synergic value addition of bringing machines along with human beings. So this is all about business case for AI in business, and therefore also is applicable for AI in internal audit. There are some myths and challenges about AI. Let's try to clear some of these myths and challenges. Some of these are myths and some of these are challenges. So the real challenge that I see is point number 1 on integration of technologies. Earlier, we had very limited options when it came to platforms like ERP, etc. We had very, very limited options. Now, we are talking about so many different kinds of options when it comes to integration of technologies. So each and every system is a standalone system that produces a lot of data. It produces tons and tons of data, tons and tons of information, and all these systems are very different. Today, for example, the ERP that was produced some 20 years ago, whether it is SAP, Oracle, or any other form of ERP, that was supposed to store all types of data in a single place or in a single platform. But that itself has become a system of record or a single source of truth, but it's still become a legacy system, because the machines today, or rather the business systems today, they are operating out there in various dimensions and in various possible ways, front ending to the customers or even at the back end. And all of these, it is not possible for all of these, because these technologies have independently evolved. Today, if you talk about a robotic process automation, it is by a very different kind of a technology, and it has been produced by, let's say, by a technology producer, by a OEM, a software OEM, which is again for a particular purpose of processing the data and processing the information and conducting certain types of business processes. And compare it with an IoT, which is basically operating and interacting with a device, which is Internet of Things, that is Internet of all things. So the device which is operating, let's say your air conditioner or a windmill that is operating on the ground, on the field, and there is a communication that is needed to that device via internet, and that's why it is IoT. Now that system is again a very, very different system. It's a hardware system that works along with a firmware, software plus hardware, and it only basically through a SCADA system or various other systems that can actually help us to operate those machines. Now these devices are very, very different and standalone. They are very disparate systems. They don't talk to each other, and they are very, very different from each other. Now, how do we make these systems to talk and integrate and be on the same platform? That's a very, very big challenge. make your ERP talk to a windmill, make your ERP or your system to talk to let's say a CRM system, which is let's say a customer relationship management system, or talk to let's say air conditioner, or talk to a delivery van. I think these are some of the some of the real issues that we are going to face in terms of integration of technologies over at least for a decade or even more. Integration of different technologies, because this technologies are disparate technologies. They're not the same technologies, and therefore to make them integrate and talk to each other is a very, very singular challenge that we're going to face when it comes to AI, because everyone produces different way in which they have to be dealt, different data sets, different languages, different ways in which they operate. Second is limited skill sets and know-how. While we believe that India has a huge amount of skill sets when it comes to technology resources, today you talk about any technology, any technologies that are operating today, most of that is having a certain kind of a presence in India, whether it is in the form of companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, or similar companies, or you talk about, let's say, the global in-house centers of most of the companies, including the large accounting and auditing firms. Nearly 30-40% of their staff, global staff, is operating out of India. Why? Because we have these skill sets that are operating today in India. We produce this kind of skill sets. World over, there's a huge shortage. I also believe that in India, there's a huge shortage. Typically you think about, I'll talk about, let's say, local accounting firms today, when they compete, they face a very huge resource challenges on availability of these skills, at a market rate, or even not being able to afford a particular market. And there is a challenge on availability of the skill sets. It's going to remain a challenge because more and more that we need these technologies, we need those skill sets to be able to feed these technologies with artificial intelligence, make them artificial intelligent, as I call it. And there's a limited skill sets. It is going to remain a challenge. Rest all that is written here is a myth. Whether it is outpacing human intelligence or replace human jobs, or it is very expensive, or there's a lack of human touch, lack of economic scale, all of these are mere myths. It is helping transform or transcend human intelligence and limitations. Human intelligence has certain limitations. It is helping to transcend it. It is not outpacing it. Basically, ultimately, human beings are the central core. Without human beings, it is garbage in, garbage out. Replace human beings, that is never going to happen. Take a case, when all the bankers in the country objected and went on a strike when Rajiv Gandhi in the olden age brought computerization in the Indian banking system. Most of the bankers, they felt that it's going to replace their jobs because machines will keep all the records, etc. It has not happened. The core banking solution has only helped the bank to basically evolve and become large, grow at least 30, 40 times compared to what the banks were during the Rajiv Gandhi era. They are at least 30, 40, 50, 100 times bigger than what they were then. So it has certainly not replaced the human beings in the banks. It has only increased. It's just that the core banking solution has actually given you a single system of records, and therefore the human beings which were originally required to document entries, to pass accounting entries and make the accounting entries and keep certain registers and ledgers, those ledger keeping has changed. It has changed in the last 20 years. It has become online, but otherwise it has only helped to improvise and add to human jobs, because the overall size of the bank has increased. And you talk about any company for that matter, at a global level, even let's say advent of an SAP system has not taken away human job, has actually only enabled the company to grow and thereby helping to create additional jobs. So technology can never replace human jobs. It can only help by adding it. But human beings have to change their skill sets very rapidly, learn and unlearn and again relearn into new sets of evolution of these different technologies. So that is what is going to change as opposed to replacement of human jobs. It's not expensive also, because at the end of it, when you make a summation, it works 24/7, 366 days, and it does the same job that human beings does at 1/3 the cost. And therefore, what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, don't use human beings for repetitive mundane tasks, because you are wasting the human skills or human time, or a human, you are spending human talent and intellect in doing some cheap or low cost activities, which we should not do it. And that's where the context of expensiveness come. It is actually 1/3 the cost of human beings. That's what at least my experience says when I've dealt with implementing some of these technologies for companies. Lack of human touch, again, I don't believe is the story. Because as I said, conversational artificial intelligence, they do the job much better, because 10,000 people working in a call center, of course, while they're trained, once they go away, the training goes away, and the training can never be 100% fully accurate to deal with all situations. And therefore, machines along with human beings can create a much better human experience, and it is not a lack of touch or just become mechanical through the use of machines. It actually enhances the experience. So that is on lack of human touch, again a myth. Lack of economic scale, again a myth. On the contrary, it only helps us to create a very good scale. So these are the myths and challenges. The first two of them are challenges: integration of technologies, availability, the limited availability of the skill sets and know-how. Rest all is a mere myth and no challenge. The first two are challenges, rest of them are myths. Now, getting a little bit more into details, I know that we also have to wrap up in a few minutes. Some real life examples. I always say, so there are 4 examples here of using of data. Again, most of you know it, so I'm not going to spend much time here, but data gives you predictive models. It can help you to predict fraud. I just want to give you one example here. It will help you to predict the fraud. What if a particular environment exists with the skill sets of the people and the usage of internal controls like background checks, etc. What is the possibility of fraud happening? Fraud is a function of few things, like, for example, automation, preventive internal control. So whether it's an automated internal control, whether it's a preventive internal control, culture of the company, having a good background check, and the governance basically in the company, and all of this basically, if you put in the form of variables, you can actually, with the help of data, you can actually predict the fraud. What is the possibility of a fraud in a plant A versus plant B, or an office in Chicago versus office in Mumbai, or an office in Australia? What is the possibility of fraud happening? And using this modeling, you can basically do a risk modeling also of fraud predictable risk model, fraud predictability risk modeling also. And that is an example I'm just giving as a data. How can we use further on? Second is RPA. I told that I'm getting into more details on this. So on RPA, basically the whole objective is to say that, okay, why don't we re-engineer, standardize, integrate and automate, that is robotize the business processes. So we have to probably go back and change some of the business processes in form of standard flows. Let the robots carry out repetitive mundane activities and processes, and let the creative human energies be focusing on strategic high impact decision making and intuitive areas. Integrate the business processes with a reflection of common theme. So for example, let's say always the business processes are influenced by the leaders of different functions. So for example, the CFO of a function may be more believing in decentralized approach and empowerment approach. So he may believe in a complete decentralized model, to say that all my finance unit head will make majority of the decisions, and I will deal with majority of exceptions, and I will deal with some of the larger strategic issues and implementing some of the strategic things for the business. But I believe in decentralization. So let not things come to me, but my finance managers will deal with most of the business issues or operational business issues. So that could be one model where a CFO is working. On the other hand, the HR head of the business may believe in completely centralizing the processes and wanting to keep everything with itself. For example, so the HC function may want to keep let's say a very centralized approach where every single project has to be approved by the head of HR. So these two cannot work while they operate in the real world in the business, because these are the human influence on the business functions, and they come with the evolution of a background of a particular leader, how he or she looks at it. But when it comes to an RPA, it gives you a opportunity to run the organization with a central theme, because you can't have disparate systems or very different, very different processes and systems in these two different functions, and therefore there has to be a common theme. And RPA allows you running an organization through a common theme and not allow very extreme influences on different business functions. It has to run through a common theme of empowerment and a common theme of centralization and decentralization. So it also helps in process objectivity like robustness, process robustness, resilience, QMS, and CMM. So that is what RPA brings to the table. It gives you a very different opportunity to re-engineer, standardize processes, and bring a common organizational theme. Coming to physical verification of inventories, I think drones do a very phenomenal job of helping us to verify the inventories and fixed assets on the field. So you don't need to. In fact, I remember myself, I have traveled in my early days of auditing, to do physical inventories every first of the month, first and second of the month, irrespective of whether it was a holiday or a public holiday. We were made to travel almost even at times thousands of miles, take a flight, land in, and do a physical verification of inventory or even fixed assets for that matter, and then go to different parts in a plant, do the dip measurements in a very I'd say very hot environment, a sunny day with a temperature of almost 40 degrees or 35 degrees out there in the sun, maybe at the noon time. And at least let's have auditors to do some better jobs, and maybe some of these can be replaced by drones. At least this is something very easily achievable. Drones can capture also some live, and auditors sitting remotely can actually observe what is a dip measurement and how it's working. Plus, if you have a cone measurement, it happens best with a heap of material or let's say a chemical manufacturing company with a heap of raw material, which the heap could be several meters high, and it is impossible for a human being to do a very accurate assessment. But a robot can actually go up and down and can do that exact conical measurement of that cone in a much precise way. So that is another example of physical verification. Wherever you used to do a physical verification, please excuse human beings for these activities. Let them do this remotely. Let them use some better machines and do it more accurately. Conversational artificial intelligence, again, this comes as a very important aid to the auditor, to the internal auditor. So let's say I gave you some examples of chatbots earlier. Let's say, for example, if you were to build a live model of what input-output ratio has been using various variables, going back to the past data of internal audit, going into the past and looking into certain capital expenditures, looking into certain variables that have come into play, and see and predict the wastage and predict the input-output ratio, and construct the live environment that what would have been a wastage had there been no capital expenditure, what would have been a wasted had the plant head of a plant A been supervising plant B, what would have been the wastage. And all of this predictability can really be very, very helpful. Once you tell a chatbot to do it, and I know that few problems that we have solved using chatbot for an internal audit function. It would have taken at least 7-8 days for a group of 3 or 4 junior auditors to have solved a particular problem. A chatbot could do it just in 2 or 3 hours. Could actually help us to give all kinds of insights, build a live report and a what if scenario, working alongside, because the data was already there and the data had to be fetched, and different variables had to be analyzed. And this chatbot really helped a human internal auditor to basically predict things like wastages, to predict things like input-output ratio, and basically improvise the experience of the auditor. So basically, the head of audit can just ask a question, okay, what if this is there? And the chatbot can actually go back and construct some of these models and can come back with a data and a report, which is very, very accurate in nature. So that is the usage of conversational artificial intelligence in an internal audit function. Last piece before I go towards the end of my session, I know we have already crossed the time, but this is the AI roadmap for a business, and I call it as a progressive journey again, leading to an AI center of excellence for a company. So what we suggest here is that every business or a large business or an impactful business should have an artificial intelligence center of excellence in the business. Because why do we need it? Because the different parts of businesses, whether marketing function, whether human capital function, whether production manufacturing system, whether a finance function, or whether information technology function itself, all of these are trying to use different evolving technologies. And there should be a central function in the business that should act as a artificial intelligence center of excellence. It should not just be composed of the people from the technology domain, but it should be very well led by business. And an internal audit function and the internal auditors, starting with the head of internal audit and including the middle management of the internal audit team, should be a part of this function as an AI center of excellence. Now, this should be the central organization or a central function, a virtual function that should drive all the technology projects in different parts of the businesses. Why internal auditor should be a part of it? Because internal auditor has to evaluate all different functions, processes, controls, and systems. And if at all it has to evaluate, it should know what's happening in the business. So it should also audit the artificial intelligence projects that are being taken up by AI Center of Excellence. It should audit the project management. It should audit the fitness for purpose, and it should audit even the security and governance of these artificial intelligence technologies. So I always say it in the AI roadmap, data should be first, process transformation. So data first, always data transformation, keep all the data available, get a data warehouse and let there be a data warehouse with all the audit, internal audit also part of the data warehouse. There should be an audit warehouse also, or an internal audit warehouse also, which should store all the audit data. And the data that was prevalent at all different points of time, all static information should be there as a part of that, not the live environment just, but all the data points that existed at different points of time. Static information should be there in the form of data warehouse. So data first, then transform your process using RPA, integrate your different business functions with a common theme, integrate. So first integrate functions, then integrate technologies, and then have a AI center of excellence, which is constituted from business and technology, and IA should be a very important part of it. So internal audit leadership team should be a part of AI center of excellence as a business process, internal controls, information security, technology evaluation, and a governance champion, basically, as a part of AI COE. So That's all that I have in terms of artificial intelligence for being integrated into internal audit. I'm happy to answer questions. Sorry, Deepji, I have kind of exceeded the timeline a little bit, but over to you and to the participants if there are any questions.
Sure. I think excellent session, Karthik. In just 6 or 7 slides, you have summed up, why by asking the 4 questions, why AI, and then gone on to, explain what is the technology to be used, how it is progressing, then going on to the concept, and then going on to basically how you're, what are the examples and case studies. So excellent session. Just 6 or 7 slides, you summed up the entire area. And as you are speaking, a number of case studies, number of implementations, number of consulting assignments, number of clients who are using, AI for internal audit is popping up in our heads. Being an audit technology company, you travel across the region and you find so many people doing so many good jobs, wonderful jobs in internal audit, in external audit using technology. So it's all coming alive because I think the basic thing which you talked about is being aligned with business, working very closely, and there's a great role for internal audit. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions, but I would request if anybody has questions, please put in the chat box or Q&A, and Karthik is here to answer them. If there are no questions, you can write into Karthik later. Karthik, you could just type in if you want, or you could just tell in the chat box. I'll write for everybody your email ID so that people can, write to you. I'll just type your email ID there, and of course you can send it to us and we'll send it to him. Karthik, it has been a wonderful session. I have really enjoyed this session because in such a short capsule, you have given the entire life cycle of what an internal auditor or what an auditor, even an external auditor, should be doing. I think what is coming out loud and clear is last year, Caseware Idea ran a survey across the world for chief auditors, and the summary, the substance coming out of it was skilling or creating, skill and competence, continuous training for auditors. Because what you said is auditors will be required. There will always be a need for auditors from, Arthashastra days, Chanakya days to now. So auditors always would be required, but the skill sets would be different. So there is a need to imbibe technology, to learn new skill sets to be relevant for the audit profession. So I think that has come out in worldwide survey by Caseware Idea also. So excellent presentation. I don't think there are any questions here, but you could always write into us and we'll be very happy to pass it on to Karthik and get back to any of you. Of course, this session would be available on YouTube. So we'll put the link and we'll broadcast that also. Thank you once again, Karthik. Thanks a lot for your valuable time and all the insights that you gave.
Thank you, Deepji, and thank you all participants. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.